Leading a business or a team through challenging times requires exceptional levels of resilience, adaptability, strategic planning, and of course, the ability to anticipate. What if you could learn the biggest lessons from C-suite executives around the world, those lessons that would help you to thrive in the years ahead? Our expert today is Jeffrey Hayzlett, who will discuss how leaders can drive innovation and growth in highly disruptive and uncertain times. Jeffrey is a branding and marketing expert, former Fortune 100 chief marketing officer, primetime TV, business, radio, and podcast host, entrepreneur, best-selling author, keynote speaker, and the chairman of C-Suite Network. By the way, there's a lot more to that list. I'm just giving you some of it. He's bought and sold over 200 businesses during his career and has weathered many economic and business storms. Jeffrey is the author of 4 business bestsellers, including Think Big, Act Bigger, The Hero Factor, The Mirror Test, and Running the Gauntlet. Thanks to his large C-Suite network, C-Suite TV, and his intense focus on helping leaders globally, he's about to share insights from some of the most seasoned experts who've effectively led their organizations and not just survived, but thrived through times of intense uncertainty. By the way, he's also a wonderful human being. I've known him for a long time. I'm excited to welcome Jeffrey. Let's get you on.
Well, thank you very much, Dan. Listening to that introduction, I think I need to copy that or record it. I'm glad it's recorded right here. So I go back and show my family that. Maybe I could do that. That'd be awesome.
Well, you are truly an amazing leader. And even though you've created something to help other C-suiters, you have that mindset and you are truly an anticipatory leader, surely not a reactionary one with what you've done. So we'll integrate a little bit of those, but you are in touch with what's going on with the global C-suite. What are some of the biggest challenges that they're facing, and what have they been doing to overcome some of those challenges that you've witnessed?
I think the biggest one that I see right now, everybody's still trying to figure out, do we keep an office, have an office? What kind of office do we have? I think that's been the biggest one. I was just in New York this last week, and of course, a lot of open space there. As you walk around Main Street and some of the other cities that you travel to around the country, you're seeing a lot more, vacant spaces than we've seen before. So people are still trying to figure out that new dynamic of how that works. They know that we not only survived, but we thrived during COVID. And a lot of businesses actually did extremely well in that environment. And we learned how to work from home, and we learned that we can be efficient in those being remote or located in other locations. So we're all trying to figure that out. That's one big piece of it. So trying to figure out the balance of that, and is it going to snap back? The other thing I think that we're realizing, it took us about a year after COVID to kind of get back into a rhythm, a cadence of business. And we're starting to see that cadence really develop. And I think, Dan, it's in a very aggressive cadence that I see people meeting face to face, wanting, planes are packed. I just flew in last night, not an open seat on the plane. I know they took out inventory, but even taking out inventory, you're just seeing a lot of people on the plane, a lot of business people on the plane, traveling and doing the things that they need to do. So we know that that's effective. We know that that's something we want to do. We feel good about. And I think people have got this kind of Zoom fatigue that they've had for a while. And so we're getting that cadence. And the other piece that I would say that I'm seeing is something I wrote about. We'll give this away at the end of the show, but it was an opportunity for us to be able to talk about the crisis. What's the looming financial crisis? We're going to go through some form of it. Obviously, we're going to see some inflation. We're going to see some issues, but there's really a lot of opportunity there, even in the worst of times, during every downturn. And we always have these because that's the nature of the economy. The economy is going to have ups and it's going to have downs. And so there's some people who are a little worried about that, but that also gives businesses a lot of excuses to make some cuts, to change the business, do a little bit of difference, and maybe bet on some other winners. And so what I always tell people is never waste a good crisis.
Well, exactly. And just a couple of thoughts on that. One is that what you do in a downturn will determine how big your upturn is. So, so you realize that is really a strategic time that you need to take special action and redefine and reinvent. Secondly, regarding the office, we live in a human world, not just a technical world. It is based on relationships, and it is based on high levels of trust. And I think we really aren't going back to the way it was, because I ride a Harley Davidson motorcycle, and one of the things I love about it is there's no reverse. You see, I can't go back. I can only go forward. But what does it mean? And in my mind, I'm thinking, instead of having the office be a place where we house our employees, I think we need to redefine it as a place where we drive communication, collaboration, innovation, and those things that humans do best when they're together. And also, there are really good employees that do not thrive alone at home.
Oh, without question. I think
I've had that experience. I've started 6 companies. You can't do that with some of them. Some of them thrive, some of them don't. So we got to understand, do a little analysis, because that could be top people too, not just in the middle. This is like the top people. So who are the ones that need to be around other humans to really flower? Let's do a little more analysis rather than just a cookie cutter. So that's kind of my take on it. What's your take on it? How would you advise people on going back to the office right now?
Well, for some people, they thrive in that environment, coming to the office, working in, not having as many distractions around the house, not looking out the window every 5 minutes to see what your gardener's doing or whatever it might be. I mean, we need that. And we all have those people who, they need the supervision. They need to be around other people to get motivated and, innovative in terms of the work they do. So we're seeing that. But there are some people, quite frankly, who, you can feed them Diet Mountain Dew and some Cocoa Puffs and sit in the dark closet and they're fine. So it's a little bit of that balance. And I think that's what we have to learn in business in general, is a little bit of balance. And by the way, Dan, some great advice. You were on that show. I actually did a television show on my show, which is airing right now. In fact, one of the most sought after interviews has been All the Economist. And you were the only futurist that I actually had on that show, talking about how to overcome this crisis, how to make, the best of a crisis. Because again, as I said before, some of the best businesses in the world were founded during the darkest recessions and depressions in this country and around the world. Absolutely. Matter of fact, since we've been talking about it, you're giving everyone here something that is related to the subject we were just talking about. It's Never Waste a Good Crisis. And let's put that up there. And I really recommend this. It is not short. It's a good size report that is extremely well put together. So I advise you to pick that up right away and go through it. Thank you very much. Well, we crowdsourced it. We took some of the greatest minds out there. We asked them some advice. What would you do during a crisis? And here they are: coaches, trainers, speakers, authors, business owners, CEOs, CFOs, CIOs, all giving their advice on what they would do in an upcoming crisis, because we know it's coming. Well, another thing that I've loved about, I would call it a thread that pulls together your books and all the kinds of things that you do. And it is really about our mindset and our culture and elevating those things and really taking advantage of what's inside, right, ourselves, and what's inside of our organizations and bringing it out. And I want to get a little bit into culture and what executives can do to drive innovation and growth during these highly disruptive and uncertain times. But again, it's a mindset, and it's making sure your people are with you. Talk to me a little bit about that. I think it really gets down to the biggest thing that most businesses can concentrate on is values. What is the set of values that drive the business? 53% of the people at a company today can't cite the values of the company. That's a real problem if you're trying to lead it, because they don't know what to do or how to do it, and mostly why they're doing it. And I think that's the key thing. We learned, and I wrote a book called The Hero Factor. We focused on, putting people above profits. And when people, business leaders do that, when they focus on their values, they gross more money than anybody else. They make more money than anyone else. They have employees who are happier. They have customers who are more engaged. They have vendors who want to do business with them. And when they walk through the street, everybody's pointing at them going, there goes a hero leader. And no business leader, wakes up every morning and says, I can't wait to be a hero. nor do they wake up and say they can't wait to be stupid either. There's a few, but very few of those. And so it's really about the values. Getting those values down then makes it so much easier for all the other things. Culture, as you know, Dan, takes a long time to develop. That's why it's called culture. And culture, when I was the CMO of Kodak, I'm Kodak, you're Kodak, she's Kodak, he's Kodak. Together, that makes up our culture. But it doesn't typically drive us to short-term innovations or long-term big gains. It basically drives the direction of the business, the theme of the business. And so really what we want to focus on as leaders is the values. And then the other thing I tell people that's very important for us to look at and focus on is to focus in on that cadence or mood of the business. What's the mood? Walking around the business, what's the kind of mood that you have in the business? I've been to businesses where, like let's take a restaurant where I've been to where the food is wonderful, it's fantastic, it's great, but yet the attitude of the employee, the mood of the employee makes it so bad I don't want to go back. And I've been to other restaurants where it's not that great food. We could take maybe Scallywags in New York. I love those guys, but I love to walk in there because they know me, they know everybody. It's a happy atmosphere, and yet the food's not the greatest, but the mood is awesome, and I want to go back again and again and again. So I really tell people, look at your values and really focus in on the mood.
Well, a lot of businesses, especially retail, is focusing on elevating the customer experience. And what I would say is, are you elevating the employee experience?
Yeah, big time.
And by the way, that needs to be transformed, not just changed. And when you can do that, because again, we live in a technical world. Oh, wait, we live in a human world. And when we can rally our people, another thing that's interesting about what you said about values is, and a mission statement and the vision statement is it ours or is it mine? Yeah. And there's a big difference so that we can get people to embrace it and make it ours. Because the one competitive advantage that I cannot copy or steal, because if you get a patent, we can get around it. You're doing something that's making a lot of money. Oh, somebody will just copy it. The one thing you can't copy is your culture. And so really spending some time on that, developing it, as you said, it doesn't come fast, and making sure it's firing on all cylinders works really, really well.
I was coming back last night on a flight from Napa where I was at a board meeting for a couple of days. And as I was coming back, I was on this one particular airline. I'm not going to mention their names, but a very big one, obviously. And, it used to be that I'd be sitting in first class and I could, in the galley, listen to the flight attendants complain about the company and complain about their jobs. The mood was not good. But I mentioned to my wife yesterday, as we were walking on the plane, they said, hello, Mr. Hayzlett. They said, hello. They were nice to everybody checking in. And they had someone there at the little scanner who was saying, welcome, it's good to have you. And it was amazing to see. I said, they must have gone through some recent training, some transformation, as you said, where they're really putting this in place in order to change that mood. And then, of course, that's going to change the culture over time.
Absolutely. And by the way, if you've got someone that is an employee that's toxic and you're having trouble getting them to get rid of their toxicity, you don't want to leave them in your organization.
No, that's like being bitten by a rattlesnake and hope it's going to get better. Just kill chop off the limb, get rid of the poison as quick as possible.
Yeah, exactly. What are some of the other things that you've observed CEOs that are actually doing, actions they're taking right now during these times that is really helping them, to move forward faster?
There's two big trends I see right now. One is they're really focused in on their teams. I mean, I don't know of a CEO that I don't talk to who doesn't always talk to me about talent. That's one of the biggest things they have to manage is talent. And in this post-COVID world, a lot of things have changed. So they've had to rethink the way that they've gone about in terms of recruiting talent, keeping talent, motivating talent, training talent. And so they're really spending a lot more time looking in at the team on how they can improve those things, both from their company's perspective, a customer perspective, but also from the people who work with them. They're realizing it's a much more holistic approach. And I think that's really important. The other thing I'm seeing especially from CEOs, is outreach to other CEOs, and outreach in the form of I want to call it masterminds or councils, but be able to get together with other like-minded based on their roles or based on their industry or their size, like billion-dollar companies getting together with billion-dollar companies because they have different kinds of problems, entrepreneurs getting together with entrepreneurs. And we're seeing much more of that kind of activity going on where they're reaching out to coaches and trainers and to other people that they can surround themselves and not just learn, but really start, as you mentioned earlier, transform, Daniel. And I think that's a big, big trend that's not going to go away anytime soon.
Right. And in some ways, all of our job definitions, I don't care who you are, what level you're at, are actually already obsolete because the world's changed. Has our job description changed? Well, probably not. And so it is going to change. And either someone else can dictate it to you and you can react to that, or you can look at what's the direction the future's going? What are those, what I call hard trends, those future facts, those certainties that are shaping the future, AI and other things like that, that if I want to be more relevant, I better add that into not being an AI expert, but understanding how to use it. Let's face it, you don't have to know the physics of a phone in order to use it. But it's what you say on it that makes all the difference.
One other big one I could also mention that I've seen as a big macro trend is speed. COVID didn't cause a lot of the issues, but it helped to accelerate it. Days became weeks, weeks became months, and months became years. Those CEOs and those leadership teams that are really soaring are doing so with breakneck speed. They're just saying, putting everything aside, not doing it the old way, so to speak. They still have to go through some of the checks and balances and so forth, but they're trying to streamline that process to make decisions, to move to new markets, to market share expansion, maybe cost savings and cuttings and all the things that they're doing, and doing it with a greater tenacity. And actually, somebody said that to me this morning. I was on the phone with a partner and he says, Jeff, you seem to be more driven than I've ever seen you. And you're a well-driven person, meaning if anyone who knows me knows there's one speed for me, and that's full speed all the time, like a Mack truck. And so, and I caused some collateral damage as a result of that. There's no doubt about it. So, but I said, well, during COVID, it got a little fuzzy and I couldn't do the things I would have liked to have done because they just wouldn't have worked. Right? Because I think we needed a little bit more hugging, a little bit more soft approach. And now, since we're past that, and certainly a year after what we consider the time of which we've kind of made the transition after COVID, and now I'm starting to see it. I am driven like I've never been driven before because, time is fleeting and I'm up against the clock on everything that we do.
There's also a lot of things that we have on our list to do that maybe we no longer need to do them. They are the normal things that we put on our list when we're doing a new project or when we're taking on a new initiative. And it's like, we got to really relook at that list to make sure, do we really need to do all those things? Number one. And number two, well, generative AI and the revolution that AI has just created in this past 12 months, it's giving you the ability to automate redundant tasks, including yours, by the way. I mean you, meaning everyone watching this, including me and you, as well as get people working more efficiently. A lot of the tools are allowing us to get to accomplish 80% of what we're trying to do really fast. Of course, the real key now is the rest of the 20% to make sure that we've checked it and that we've added us to it, and that we've gotten rid of and filtered out all the bad and misleading information. But the point I'm making is, instead of starting at 0, I can start at 80%. That can help me to get there faster. So we need to be looking at those tools. And of course, there's enterprise versions now and so on.
Well, and some of those great apps and tools have changed our lives. They certainly have for me. I'm a baby boomer in a millennial body. That's what I always describe as the way I do it, because I do tend to adopt a lot of those things fast. Steve Napolitano, a friend of mine years ago, and I'm going to say about 7 or 8 years ago, gave me one of the best pieces of advice, and it was automate, delegate, and eliminate. And that's I put that on my calendar every day. I look at everything that's on my calendar. I look at everything that's on my to-do list and say, what can I automate, delegate, or eliminate? Because I find many of those things on that list, and I don't have to do. And I could either give them to somebody else or get rid of them, or choose to the most key things I have to do. But I always pick those key things every day, just like the old days. I haven't changed any of that. What are the 2 or 3 things I must get done today to propel my business, propel me, or to get to my own personal conditions of satisfaction? Those things are going to drive my business or my life.
Yeah, I've got, like you, I've got a list I look at every day of these are the strategic things that'll help me move forward. And there are things in there that keep getting pushed down because new things come in that are actually more important. And if they get pushed down for, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and they're just out of here. Because
do you really need them? Yeah, do you need them?
Yeah. Do I need all of this stuff, or am I just upset about the fact that I didn't do all those things that maybe aren't that relevant anymore? So it's looking at that. One other concept I'll throw out and let you play with it a minute, and that is that all organizations have, if you think of it, a brake and an accelerator. And if you're just pushing down on the accelerator and going at 100%, you'll burn yourself and everybody out. So there's strategic velocity versus speed. But the other element to it is identifying where the brakes are and where the accelerators are. And I can move forward faster, not necessarily by pushing down on the accelerator. I can move forward faster by just letting up on the brake a little bit. Because right now, every organization has a combination of brakes and accelerators that are all working at different levels. Well, as a leader, we need to be knowing where those are and adjusting those so that we can indeed move forward faster and take advantage. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, with that, I think, the job of a C-suite executive is not to be the biggest person in the room, not to be the smartest person in the room, the best looking person in the room, whatever moniker you want to say. Our job is to be the most strategic person in the room. And that's what we should be really spending our time doing, is how can we take the strategy and get it implemented as quickly as we can, right? Because speed to the lead is really critical for us, and speed to success in terms of getting that done, especially if you're up against some really tough competition. So our job is to really be more strategic. And why I say, hey, I'm a hard charger, we got to know where that brake is. You need to know where your turn signals are. You need to know that there are other things in that car that you're driving that are at, a horn to get out of the way. Sometimes there's all of these pieces that are available for you. And you just have to know which one of those levers to pull and when. And that's why you need to be the most strategic person in the room.
Well, one of your books was Think Big, Act Bigger. Give me a few of what you're talking about in there, because I've shared some concepts like that. I think we've taken different approaches to that. Tell me about of that. What can we teach people that are watching this about that? By the way, one thing to do is get that book, but share some of the things that are in that one.
Yeah, that's still one of my most popular books. And the tagline of that is the rewards of being relentless, because that's the most important thing you have to do as a business leader, is just be relentless about the things that you're driving each and every day. But let me give you a good prime example of this. I was working with somebody who asked me to come and be a part of a mastermind where we're going to do indoor skydiving. We got a rear admiral coming. We have the commander of the Blue Angels going to be there, an astronaut, some Navy SEALs. It's going to be amazing. So we're going to put people inside of an air tunnel and basically fly them indoor, where a turn of your hand could put you on the ceiling or on the floor, just like a turn of a pen. So it's great lessons to be learned there. And in the process of that, we were talking about how many people we could put in there. And that person who was co-chairing this with me said, well, I can only get 10 in my room. And I said, what do you mean, only 10? He goes, well, I have a boardroom, so we have to limit to 10. I said, aren't you across the street from a hotel? A really nice, 4-star hotel? He goes, yes, I am. I said, how many rooms might they have? He goes, hundreds. I said, so we're only limited by the size of your room, not the room across the street. So sometimes we got to rethink. So think bigger. How do we add a zero to that? How do we, change that in some form of velocity that we might want, or volume that we might want? And so the real core of the book is about, how to overcome all the obstructionists and the naysayers who stand in the way of driving progress in an organization.
Yeah, it's a key to great leadership. I think one of the things that our people right now that are watching this should be doing is looking at, again, what's the brake, what's the accelerator? How can I adjust those things? What are the limitations, often self-imposed, limitations that are keeping us from moving forward faster, accomplishing more in less time, and then redefining what more means. I mean, again, do I want to give more value? Well, yes. What does that mean? That's a nice phrase. Let's get specific about that. So if we drill down to those things, all of a sudden we get more actions.
Well, and sometimes leaders, we have to be seen as a little irrational. Some of the greatest minds in the world have been seen that way. You can look at Elon Musk almost every other day and see that. But what I mean by that, sometimes we have to say, hey, we're going to go from A to point B. But as a leader, you might tell people we're going to go way over here to C. And they'll look at you like you're crazy. But we know that by going to C, it gets everybody to at least to B, where we really truly need to be. And it's also saying you've got the vision, you've got the drive of where we're going to go. And it gives them a far off point into the galaxy or into another whole plane that says this is where we need to be. And we'll work on our way to get there. And so, it's okay to be irrational from time to time.
What are some of the things that, and I'm going to ask you for yourself now, when you were developing the idea for C-Suite Network and what you're doing, which has been huge, you started from scratch. So
yeah.
You did. I know.
Yeah.
I've known you for some time. So lead us through that process, because it's been very successful. You've done amazing things with it. You've kept raising the bar on yourself. I've noticed that. Mm-hmm. Worked really well, but go through a little bit of your personal process, because again, I just touched on your bio. You've got so many wonderful things you've done. Let's get inside of Jeffrey a little bit and share some of the things that helped you to think bigger and to see those things.
Well, it was, first of all, when I was the CMO of a Fortune 100 company at Eastman Kodak, here I was sitting around, and I was part of a group of about 50 CMOs from around the world, some of the biggest companies in the world. And what I realized was there's great value in being part of a tribe, part of a group, a community of like-minded individuals or people who were bigger than us and littler than us, but somebody I could always learn from. I could always find something from, that pony that was there. And so that was the one piece. The second piece was, after I left Kodak, I went off and did my own television show on Bloomberg called The C-Suite with Jeffrey Hayzlett, where I took people into the C-Suite, into the boardrooms, where people at the company, 99% of the people at the company never got to go inside. And so I would see something and then want to go do an interview with that company and say, why are they doing this? Like when Domino's launched its big campaign that says our pizza tastes like cardboard, who would spend $80 million to tell people this? That pizza tastes like cardboard. Well, that campaign became one of the most successful campaigns and took their stock from 70, 80 cents to over $109 a share in a very short amount of time. So massive success. So I like to know why. Why would that happen, and then what learnings? And so from that, that's how we got the idea, from the success of that and the learnings that we had, being with others, being a part of a bigger tribe. I said, other people are going to want this. Other people are going to do it. So that's what we did. And it takes a while for you to figure those things out. You might, think I'm going to go do this. And then, no, it's over here and does this. And by the way, you gave, and I credit you for giving me one of the best pieces of advice as I was growing, because today we have 350,000 C-suite executives, 10,000 paying members in the thing, 450 podcasts, 50 million downloads, 72 TV shows, and 70 councils, masterminds and councils, and growing. And it's going to double that this year. It's amazing. And, one of the best pieces of advice was, I was lamenting about how I'm going to grow this and how am I going to do this? I got to have the cash to do it. And you said to me, you turned to me in a meeting of it was a group of $1 million speakers, and you said, X is a service. And I turned back to you and said, Dan, what the hell does X as a service mean? What does any of that have to do with me? I don't get it. He goes, why do you have to do it? And I went, oh my gosh. He goes, you said this to me. You're a futurist. You're a smart guy. And you said you could have other people do it and put your name on it. Just make sure it's at the standards that you want. Well, we've been doing that. And certainly now we have C-suite loans, C-suite legal, C-suite business valuation, all with great partners who are doing it. And I make money from it. And we provide a great service and value to the people we're serving. So we'll do that, another 40, 50 of those. And that marketplace, we hope to be valued at well over $1 billion in the near future. And all because, you take a suggestion, you have a vision of what you want, you don't always know how to get there. Well, I tell people I'm building the plane as I'm flying it.
Well, another thing that a couple things you're doing there. One is there's a skill that leaders have or need if they don't have it, strategic listening. And it's kind of like you've got an opportunity antenna up all the time. Yeah. And you're listening with different ears than others because you've got things you're working on. In your case, you had a limitation, kind of like the guy who said we can only put 10 CEOs in the room. And your limitation was, I've got to invent and actually start all these sub companies. And I mentioned something that broke you through the limitation, but you heard it, you saw it, and then what did you do? Well, you acted on it. And by the way, you acted quickly on it. So again, that's where I know whenever I've got a good idea, and I've started 6 companies over the years too, and I would say whenever I heard a good idea or I got a great idea, before I even got back to the office, I was on a call getting it started already.
Absolutely. I do that all the time.
I know it's good.
Yeah. Or I buy the IP. At least I buy the domain, the names, and those kinds of things, and lock those up. At some point, I even have C-suite cologne, the smell of success. And one of these days, I'll come up with that. We'll do it.
Yeah, I love it. Well, see, that's it. You want to tie it up. You want to make sure that you own the potential ecosystem.
Right. It's exactly right. Well, in this case, we're building a platform. We're building a platform for success, be able to use content to drive your success. We saw that early on, that every company has to become a media company to really serve, to really move forward into the future, especially with more and more email filters and so many different ways for people to opt out of messages, to deselect and select those messages they want to listen to or hear. You've got to find different ways to be able to get that. And of course, we learn that very quickly and then build that platform and basically create what I call the Sequoia effect, like this giant, huge tree. And underneath this is this lush ecosystem that everybody can operate in.
Well, I loved what you said just a few seconds ago. You dropped it off quick, and I want to make sure people absorbed it. And that is, you said, every business needs to be a media business. And because, again, it's a multimedia world out there, and there's a lot of avenues to listen. By the way, there'll be new ones. There'll always be. Yeah. As a matter of fact, some of those new ones should be things that our viewers are creating, just like you created it. I mean, have all the great things been created already? And of course, the answer is, well, no, we've just scratched the surface.
Well, now you can even you can create an AI avatar of someone. I can go into the studio, create a video of me, and then now feed that video into from a teleprompter and read it, and then or just feed the script into the AI generated avatar, and now I can give a speech or a course in 37 different languages. At least that's the limitation today. I'm sure you'll be able to do in every language at some point.
Yeah, exactly. And just like one of the features that OpenAI ChatGPT has is that you can create your own GPTs, where without knowing how to program, you just tell it what you want it to do. It'll even create the image, the brand for you. It'll create everything like that. And you can put a price on it and put it in their store and sell it if you want. I mean, again, opportunity galore. So what are some, if we would kind of take our conversation today and what you again have learned from all of the C-suite people that you've been working with and talking to, what are some actions, maybe some steps that you would advise people that are watching this to take to help them thrive in these uncertain times? What are some actions you hope that they take?
Well, I think one of the first one is just exactly what you said earlier, and that's the listen. I find that some of the greatest leaders in the world are the ones that are really great listeners, and that they can just in a matter of seconds listen to what's being said, how it's being said, and give some great direction on where they need to go and how they need to internalize it and then push it through the system or lead the system to where it's at. So I think that's a big one for all of us. The second one, Dan, is I think we have to really be clear about our values. that what is it that we stand for? Like people will come to me from time to time and say, Jeff, would you like to do this? And I go, no, because it doesn't fit in my values. I know quickly. It's a great filter to be able to push everything through. Do I want to work with that person? Do I want to work with that business? Do I want to do that? No. Or yes. And no, by the way, is a great word to be able to use from time to time. Like, no, we're not. That's not what we're about. That's not who we are. And it's all about understanding who you truly, really are. And the third thing is, what are your conditions of satisfaction? What is it that you want out of the business, out of your life, out of your family, out of all those things? And make sure that that's at the forefront of what's driving you and where you want to go. I don't think we spend enough time about what it is we want to have when it's all said and done. And you might change those over time, but at least you're driving towards those conditions, hopefully mutual conditions of satisfaction for you and everybody around you.
Yeah, I like to think of your ideal goal like 10 or 15 years out, and then plan backwards, getting more vague as you get towards the present, because now you have direction. And, so that, because you can create something that when it's done, you would say, why the heck did I ever do that? Because
and you'll find that first goal that you set for 15 years, you're going to achieve it a lot faster than you think you did. I remember I said, I want to hit a certain number. When I hit that number, I'm done. Well, I hit that number, pretty quick. And then I said, well, I'm not done. I'm way too young and I'm not done. And I really want to do more and build more legacy of the things that are important for me, which is about being a grandfather, by the way, mostly.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I know you're doing a great job on that one as well. Well, let's put up the thing we're giving away. Let's put that up again. I'm really recommending Claim Your Recession Survival Guide. I love that in bold, because we will have some sort of recession, and we'll have some sort of downturn. We'll have some sort of crisis. By the way, those things kind of come, they go, they cycle. But knowing how to tap into the opportunity they represent is a key.
I was going to say, we had a great piece of advice in there from Art Laffer, who invented the Laffer curve, father of Reaganomics. He said, never catch a thrown knife. And a knife is being thrown at you in some way, shape, or form when it comes to business. And so a great piece of advice that came out of that interview.
Yeah, no, I really like that a lot. Well, I want to thank you for being with us today. And I know you are creating your own luck out there. You do a great job of it. You've shared some great wisdom, and thanks again for being with us today.
Thank you. I appreciate